We are now going to have a conversation on the new era of service. To join us in this dialogue, please join me in welcoming to the stage Congresswoman from California, Doris Matsui, Congressman from California, Mr. George Miller, the Honorable First Lady of the State of California, the amazing Maria Shriver, and AmeriCorps alumna, Zarina Hameen. Those four will be joined by our moderator and one of the conveners of the ServiceNation Summit in New York, the managing editor of Time magazine, and the person who brought national service into the national spotlight and has made it part of the national conversation, Mr. Richard Stengel. Thank you. Let's hear it for our entire...
Thank you so much. I'm Rick Stengel. I'm the editor of Time magazine. I'm delighted to be here. And as everyone has said already, it's fantastic to do that today on Martin Luther King Day. Martin Luther King said famously that the Constitution and the Declaration were promissory notes, but that they had not been fulfilled. We are coming closer than ever to fulfilling those promises in the Constitution and the Declaration, and one way to do it is through service. I was about to say that service is not a silver bullet. Service is a silver bullet. It can help us repair the breaches in our history. It can help us repair the problems that we are facing now. And Barack Obama, as the 44th President of the United States, has said that national service will be at the core of his presidency. Now, you've met some of the folks on our panel here today. I'd like to start with the First Lady of California, who has done extraordinary things in making California a representative of how we can use service in the states. The states are taking the lead. You've taken the lead in California. How can the California model be replicated in the rest of America? Maria.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here, people of ServiceNation, Target, and all the people who probably know a lot about what we're talking about. But I think there's so many ways that I think the individual states can get involved in this movement. I think one of the most important things is to do what we did in California, which is to make service and volunteering a cabinet-level position. Let's face it, you have to get service and volunteering into the power office, out of the First Lady's office, and into where the decisions are made. It's true. I'd like to say it isn't, but it's true. Once it gets to a cabinet-level position, it's involved in where all the decisions are made when it comes to security, disaster corps, motivation, healthcare, all of those things. So I think it's important, number one, to be at the table. I think one of the things we've done in California, the goal was to try to get all 38 million Californians to be of service. We can now direct them to a website. They just put in how many hours they have, whether they have 1 hour a month, 1 hour a year. They give their zip code. They say what they're interested in, and it makes it easy for them to be a part of the process. So I think that's something that all 50 states can do, which makes it easy and rewarding. I think another thing that states can do is try to bring the business community involved with the government, involved with nonprofits, and develop a list of best services, best practices, so that we can all be on the same page. 1 in 3 people who actually go out to serve don't stay because they don't get something that's rewarding. They don't feel that they're doing something meaningful. So I think that there are things we can do together to make people who get into the process find it rewarding. And I think the other thing that's a challenge for this country today that perhaps wasn't as much of a challenge 40 years ago is to figure out how to bring different communities into the process. I think the message to the Latino community, the Hmong community, the African American community, California, we have over 100 different languages. You have to make it tailor-made a little bit to different communities who expect the message from different messengers and have to have the culture starting at a very young age. So I think those are some of the challenges that can be met at the state level and carried through to the national level. And I think certainly talking about it over and over again, I think less of a responsibility, but more as an opportunity. This is an opportunity that we get to serve. And it's an opportunity that we can start talking to our children about when they're 4 or 5 years of age. You are never too young, never too old. And I think if it's done at the dining room table, done in schools, done in businesses, so many people look to their business to give them service opportunities. And if you talk about it with your children and say, this is your opportunity, I expect it of you, as my parents did. I'm wearing a little badge of my dad. It wasn't an option in our house. It was just expected. It was an opportunity, and you went, and you did it. And then you passed down that guilt and that opportunity to other generations. But I think that's the goal, is to really bring the different sectors together, government, nonprofits, schools, put a website up, look at the different languages, work with the federal government, state government, and businesses to develop good practices.
Thank you, Maria. Now we have two representatives with us, Congresswoman Matsui and Congressman Miller. Congressman Miller, you're chairman of the House Education and Labor Committee. I believe, Congresswoman, you were one of the co-founders of the House National Service Caucus. We have actually something on the table, the Serve America Act, which one of your uncles was a co-sponsor of, Senator Kennedy and Senator Hatch. How will that work in the House? Will that bill pass, and what are you guys going to do to help make it pass? Congressman Matsui.
Okay. You know, first of all, thank you very much for having us here today. And I have to point out, as Maria was speaking, that you have 3 Californians here. And I think you know where the action is coming from. I will have to say, I have to follow along on what Maria said about guilt and opportunity. There is a little bit of that going on, but the opportunity is here today. I've been involved in national service since I was in the Clinton administration with AmeriCorps, writing that first piece of legislation. And I have to say that today we have an opportunity because of this new president who makes service the central part of his life. What's important to, I know Congressman Miller and I, is that we're already there. We are part of it. But to have an administration who believes service is intrinsic to participation in this government is going to be very, very important. The Service Act and anything to do with service this year, I believe, is not going to have any problem at all passing. It's something, and I'm making this commitment, and George is here, so you know we got a little pressure put on him right here. But my feeling is that, you know, we had this project with Food Bank, in essence, collecting food. And this was something that we did with the Service Caucus, and having food dropped off at 4 offices. I cannot tell you what the response has been. It's been fabulous. When we looked at the whole situation, trying to figure out what the Hill would want to do, we looked to see the children in this whole area don't get the opportunity to probably eat when we have a day off. So therefore, we really believe it's important to have a food service type of operation. I would tell you this. We have more people now coming up to us. We talk about it a lot on the Hill. We are getting the type of support we never thought we would get before. And the leadership is coming from the administration and from people who are involved in the Congress. It takes people talking to people. It really does. And service has been a part of my whole life from the very beginning, and as a child itself. And when I changed schools in 1st grade, my mother said the best thing to do is to volunteer. You can meet other kids. Even at 6 years old, you can do that. So at any rate, there is the opportunity today. We've got great bipartisan support in order to move something. And I think that's the important thing, is that we've got the support. And I will leave it to George to talk about the technicalities of this.
Congressman Miller.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here this morning, and thank you to Target, to Service the Nation, for bringing us all together around this most important idea for our country. We will pass the legislation this year. We gave it a road test last year. It got unanimous approval in the Education Committee for the House companion bill to the bill in the Senate. We did not make it off of the floor, but we will this year. I serve as chair of the Education Committee, but I also have served many years on the Natural Resources Committee. And the two things I love to do is I spend a huge amount of my time back home in my district in schools and in the community. And when I have extended free time, I spend a lot of time in the high Sierra Mountains. And I engage young people and older people working in service to the national park systems, to the trail systems, to the California Conservation Corps. I've sat around campfires with people in the autumn when they're closing down the programs just before the snows come, and listened to young people who came from very chaotic backgrounds now talk about their vision, their hope, their aspirations. Where would I see them in 5 years? I'd see them graduating from college and looking for a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And the same hopes and aspirations that so many people have, but now they can start to see a path. And when I walk into to a school in my district, a poor school in my district, and I walk into that energy field of a Teach for America teacher with all those young English learners, it's a very, very exciting moment for me. And I represent a district where it essentially is this. There are thousands and thousands of children in my district and adults in my district that simply would not be able to thrive without volunteerism, without service. It's just that simple. It's about whether or not these children are going to have a chance of success, whether about seniors are going to be able to stay in their own home or go to a home that's fit for them. And so many people in our area are involved in making those opportunities possible. We're going to win this legislation, and I like to think that we could win it again unanimously in the committee, and we could even do it on the floor. And I think the big reason is that what's different now from a year ago, it really is that we now have millions of young people who tasted political service and tasted the success, are in town reaping the benefits of that, and understand maybe one of the great civics lessons in the history of the country. And this kind of legislation really is not passed. And I look out and I see so many people who helped this last year. It's not passed in Washington, D.C. It's passed home in congressional districts where people go in and talk to members of Congress about their experience, the benefits, the opportunities. We're looking forward to thousands and thousands of visits to members of Congress's office, so they'll understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.